Last night, at one of the most famous annual dinners in the world, shots were fired. The President of the United States was evacuated. The Vice President was evacuated. The First Lady was evacuated. 2,600 people were in that room. And for a few minutes, nobody knew what was happening. Not politically, not to take a side, not to attack anyone or to defend anyone, but because I think there are things happening in this moment that are bigger than politics, and nobody is saying them out loud. Let's talk about it. First, let me tell you exactly what happened for anyone who hasn't seen the news yet. Last night, April 25, 2026, was the White House Correspondents dinner. For people who don't know what that is, it's an annual tradition in the Washington, D.C., where the president, top government officials, journalists, celebrity dignitaries are all gathered together in one room for one night. It's supposed to be at unity, press and power in the same room, even when they disagree one night together. This year was historic for another reason too. It was the first time President Trump attended the dinner as a sitting president. 2,600 people in Washington Hilton Hotel ballroom. The president, the vice president, the first lady, the FBI director, the secretary of state, members of cabinet, members of Congress, hundreds of journalists, all in one place. And then at around 8:40 p.m., a man named Cole Thomas Allen, 31 years old, from California, charged through the security checkpoint in the hotel lobby, armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives. He fired at Secret Service agents. One agent was hit, but his bulletproof vest saved his life. The suspect was tackled and taken into custody. Inside the ballroom, 2,600 people heard the shots. People ducked under the tables, Secret Service swarmed the stage, the president was evacuated, the vice president was evacuated first, the first lady was evacuated, the dinner was cancelled, and just like that, one of the most powerful rooms in the world became a crime scene. Now let me tell you what I think about it. The first thing that hit me wasn't political. It was something more fundamental than that. Think about what that room was. The president of the most powerful country on earth, his vice president, his entire cabinet, hundreds of the most powerful journalists in the world, all in one place. And one person, one individual with weapons he bought or found almost changed history. One person. That is a terrifying thought if you sit with it. Not because of who was in the room, but not because of politics, but because of what it tells us about how fragile things actually are. We built this enormous system, governments, institutions, security apparatuses, protocols, and checkpoints, and agencies, and one determined person in the right place at the right moment can shake all of it. The Secret Service did their job brilliantly. One agent took a bullet and his vest saved him. The suspect was stopped before he got to the ballroom. Everything went right on the security side, and still 2,600 people hid under the table, and still the President of the United States was evacuated. One of the most famous annual tradition in America was cancelled, and the night ended in chaos. That's how thin the line is between the order and the chaos. And I think that's what most people aren't sitting with in the middle of all political noises around this. Here's the honest truth I want to say. This is not the first time something like this has happened around President Trump. In July 2024, a gunman shot at him at a rally in Pennsylvania. A bullet grazed his ear. He stood up with the blood on his face. In September 2024, another assassination attempt at his golf course, and now this. I'm not here to talk about Trump politically. I want to make that very clear. But I'm here to say, regardless of how you feel about any politician, this level of political violence is dangerous for everyone, not just for the people in the room, for all of us. Because when violence becomes a language of politics, when people decide that the answer to disagreement is a gun instead of a conversation, everybody loses. The rule of law loses, democracy loses, safety loses. It doesn't matter which side the violence comes from. It doesn't matter who the target is. Violence in politics is a disease. And right now, looking at the last few years, that disease is spreading. And I think people on every side of every argument need to be honest about that. Not to score political points, but because if we normalize this, if we start accepting political violence as part of the landscape, we are heading somewhere very dark. And getting back from that place is much harder than people think. I want to take a moment to say something that I think gets lost in all the noise. The Secret Service agent who got shot last night, he stood between a man with a shotgun and a room full of people. He got hit, and because he was wearing his vest, he survived. And Trump called him afterward and said he's doing great, he's in good spirits, and he's proud of what he did. That man, whose name most people won't know by tomorrow, that man did his job in the most terrifying possible way. He ran toward the gun. And I think in a moment full of division and noise and political arguments, that act deserves to be acknowledged. Because regardless of who you support politically, regardless of what you think about anyone in that room, a man did his duty and protected other human beings at the risk of his own life. That's real, that matters, and it deserves more than a footnote in the political coverage. Let me zoom out for a second, because I think there is a conversation that this moment is demanding that we are not having. We are living in a time of enormous tension, political tension, cultural tension, economic tension, global tension. And that tension, when it has nowhere to go, turns into something dangerous. People feel unheard. People feel like the system aren't working for them. People feel like nothing they do makes a difference. And some people, a smaller number, but enough to matter, decide that violence is the answer. That's not a left problem or a right problem. That's a human problem. And the solution isn't more outrage on social media. The solution isn't more division. The solution isn't pointing at the other side and saying, see, this is what you caused. The solution is harder than that. It requires people on every side to decide that they are not going to contribute to the temperature, to decide that disagreement doesn't require dehumanization, that the person who thinks differently than you is still a person. That words matter, that tone matters, that what you put into atmosphere comes back. And I know that sounds simple, maybe too simple for a problem this big, but the alternative, continuing to turn the temperature up, continuing to treat politics like war. The alternative is more nights like that last night. And I don't want that. I don't think you do either. I don't think anyone on any side actually does. Here's where I land on all of this. Last night was scary. Not because of who was in the room, but because of what it represents. A night where the answers to disagreements is violence, is a world that is worse for everyone. The agent who took the shot and stood up, he deserves our respect. The 2,600 people who hid under the table, they deserve our empathy. And the rest of us watching from our phones and our screens, we deserve an honest conversation about where we are going and where we are okay with it. I'm not okay with it, and I think most people, when they are being honest with themselves, aren't either. I wanted to talk about this today because I think it matters. Not the politics, not the sides, the moment. And what we decide to do with it. Drop your answer. Drop your honest thoughts in the comment. I want to hear how people around the world are seeing this. Subscribe if you want more honest conversations like this. I will see you in the next one.